Hello, welcome to Body Summon with Daniel Leon. I don't know what happened, but the last time I tried to record this episode that I'm about to do, I could not finish it because it was at night and my mom was home and I had a bunch of things to do. And then I had to go to bed early because I was tired. So I didn't get to finish this, and when I woke up, the iOS or the iPad was just dead, complete off. So I'm gonna redo this. I'm gonna start off by saying that I'm gonna be talking about Brawl 1995 War Games. The first match in WCW, of course, was 20-minute time limit match to determine the new number one contender for the United States title. Between Sting, and as I recall, it was with the full 20 minutes. Nobody got a pinfall. So because it was mandatory to get a new number one contender, they went overtime. And Johnny B. Bad won by when they both going for running across the body, and I think Brian fell sideways on his ribs, and it's a good thing it wasn't close to Johnny's knees because he could have really gotten hurt. But Johnny held on to his back so that he wouldn't get hurt. He put him down and he pinned him for the pinfall victory. And the next match, I believe, was Cobra losing to Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman by submission. I'm rewinding it on the network app to make sure. Okay, I'm looking at the replay of the first match so that I keep up with what they're talking about. Oh yeah, because this was first time they show their lead interviewer, Mean Gene Okerlund, which many people would have said they stole from Vince. Is how long he had been in the company before going to WCW. They showed his name on the screen, just like they show the wrestlers and the commentators. And he had interviewed Ric Flair about his match with Arn Anderson, and Arn Anderson subsequently, about an hour after that, was interviewed, and they basically just cut a promo about their match, and Ric Flair actually that broke a little bit of kayfabe. Actually, they broke a lot of kayfabe, where they said that no matter what they went through throughout their lives before getting into the business, after they met each other, they always had a bond. And somehow it was broken. And he said, and of course he mentioned the number 4 and the 4 horsemen and everything being a part of that bond. And he said the only problem with facing Arn Anderson is that he loves him. And that was actually a good selling point of the storyline and the match. So I believe that's what set it up. But what did not help it was they didn't have it, or the fans didn't know what the heck they were wrestling about outside of just having a match. So it really was not a good idea to have the match. Anyway, the next match, I was right, it was Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman against Cobra, who he beat with I believe the code red is it's not a regular armbar, you know, in jiu-jitsu, but it's a form of an armbar. Where he puts the legs over his opponent and he pulls back until he submit. That's the type of armbar he put on Cobra. Then they show a replay of how he entered the ring. Then they showed a video of Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. He was questioning himself and if he was Mr. Wonderful or not. And he was sitting down in a chair by himself in his dressing room, and he was unlacing his boots, saying, I don't know if I'm Mr. Wonderful or not anymore. They brought in a guy, I'm not really sure how to describe his hair, outside of it looking like a wig. They said he was a psychic, and he needed to talk to Paul, and he started encouraging Paul, and he told Paul to look at himself in the mirror and to remind himself who he was and is. And, like, I was saying this yesterday morning or afternoon, that it would be funnier if that was not a possibility. Because there really are sidekicks like that in real life. That's why it's not as funny as it used to be. So the next match was the TV title, Diamond Dallas Page challenging the Renegade with Jimmy Hart. I believe Muscle had tried to trip Renegade, and when Renegade saw that, got on the top rope and he dove on top of him with a clothesline or crossbody. Then he got caught. When he tried to enter the ring, he got caught by Max Muscle because Max held onto his leg for the Diamond Cutter to be hit, and that's how he lost the Brawl TV title to Diamond Dallas Page. Well, the problem with the Renegade character, the real life problem with it was that it was supposed to be a rip-off of the Ultimate Warrior, and he was supposed to be groomed to go against Hulk Hogan, which never happened. And Ric Flair said himself he should not have been TV champion. Not because he was bad, no. Problem was, he was too, the Ultimate Warrior was not a very good wrestler, but he was very quick and very, and he would go through people span of a minute, I think, or 2 minutes. So when Renegade won the TV title from Arn Anderson, it took too long for him to finish it. And that's why he said he shouldn't have won the title. Because that ruined any bit of credibility he had as an Ultimate Warrior twin. That's why he lost the title so quickly. Just that it should have been to Arn Anderson. So anyway, after that, after he dropped the title for an end to Diamond Dallas Page, he was never the same after that. Then they, I'm not going to say what happened. I'm just going to let that on. I'm going to talk about that as it happens in these episodes. Oh, this is what happened. Max Muscle started climbing the ring apron, and Page was thrown right into him, back into him with an Irish whip reversal, and into a power slam, and because Renegade saw that Max was gonna get involved. That's why he hit him with I think it was a flying clothesline. But that's why Max Muscle held his legs so that Page couldn't, so Page could hit the diamond cutter on him and win the title. Some interesting stuff to look at. Next match was the Brawl Tag Team titles. This, to me, as far as character development, this took 2 years to get to, but as much flack as it gets, because some people think it's strange, it served its purpose because it brought a character to life that was struggling for 2 years. So that's why I give both people credit for doing it, and especially the man who took part in it, because he was so capable of so much more. Harold Parker and Sister Sherry. Sherry managing Harlem Heat, and them challenging Harold Parker's team, Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater, for the tag team titles. So what happened was, it was hilarious. The way he insulted her, and then all of a sudden decided to kiss her, and then she hit him, and that happened, I think, too much straight, and then the amazing thing was that it was more of a story between them. After that match happened between their teams, the first match, that was more of a, it became more of a story between the managers and less of a story between the teams. So when they put the titles back on Heat, Harlem Heat, and had them defend the titles against Buck and Slater, was really just to give the two a reason to have a story together, Sherry and Parker, and I really can't say why it brought the character to life, but Parker had said in his shoot interview that he did not know how to act like Colonel Parker, so because he was supposed to be like Colonel Sanders, and Colonel Sanders looks in the classic picture as like Tom Sawyer. So he read Tom Sawyer books, and that's what helped him start the growing process of the character. But bringing it to life came by working with Sister Sherry. And the best part of this was Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone's commentary to set this match up. Let me say what happened. Whenever Harlem Heat lost the titles to Buck and Slater, Parker had heard what Sherry's idea was, getting a rematch, and she said her man could beat his man, and she could beat him any day of the year with both of her hands tied behind her. And he said, what if all six of us get in the ring, and if you beat me, we'll give you that rematch? Because he's so much taller than her, it only made sense for her to fall on her head and all of a sudden fall in love with him. That actually, not only was it the biggest turning point, it also made it funnier to do. And in real life, that was the most fun she had in the storyline. And what I mean by it was easier to do was, even though she could have hit him with a crossbody on the top rope to win the match, it would not have been as funny as they were trying to make it. So to make it funnier, they had her hit her head after missing a body splash on the top rope, and I don't really know how else to describe it. Then when she stood up, what happens? All of a sudden, it's almost like she had a form of amnesia, where she forgot she was even upset with him, and she starts kissing him. And this gets me to my point about Bobby Heenan making it funny. He said, "Run for your life!" What was really interesting was, I think this match was set for 25 minutes, like the opening match was set for 20 minutes. I think like 10 minutes before the time limit expired, was when it really broke out, and that's when Parker and Sherry decided instead of running away from her, which, by the way, in the pre-game show, which was always on their Sunday telecast, Sunday afternoon show, he had brought her flowers, and Jerry Sags of Nasty Boys broke the flowers on top of Parker, and I think she still had some remains of that with her, so that really made it interesting. What do they do? Well, actually, I think Stevie Ray and Buckhouse Buck were fighting outside. The referee was trying to get them to stop fighting outside. That was actually a perfect opportunity, because, no, let me restate that. While Jerry Sags was breaking the flowers over Parker, his partner in the ring, Brian Knobs, got hit with Dick Slater's boot, and they lost to the American Males. So while Parker should have been watching out for Dick Slater, as he was about to kiss Sherry, or as he was kissing Sherry, Dick Slater gets hit with his boot by Jerry Sags. And that, of course, led to them winning the titles. No, that led to Harlem Heat winning the titles. And what was great about this was, when he was getting interviewed by it, there was a song that I found out Randy Travis made this a long time ago. Country singer Randy Travis. He made a song, Better Class of Losers. And another way of saying that, the people that were stuck up made the quote losers that he hung around with. They were classier than the stuck up people. And he said toward the end of that song, "You're always saying grass is greener on the other side. Where I'm standing, I don't see any grass at all." Well, I think because Buck heard that song, so he said that to Colonel Parker in the post-match interview, and all he told them was two things. Number one, I'll see you get another match, and the second thing was, I'm Colonel Parker and I run this here outfit. And another way of saying that is, I got this under control. And he said that because of how he felt about Sherry, and yeah, I am laughing. Because of that, on one hand, because his men lost the titles, he feels like he's at the bottom of the barrel. But on the other hand, he feels like he's his heart soaring like an eagle. And he said, once again, he said he would see they got another match. And that's why I'm glad to do these episodes, going by the show, pay-per-view, and then the show itself. Because I don't want to ruin my the next episode of Brawl vs. Nitro, which I think I'm going to lead this into that. So after that, they had a interview spot for Arn Anderson, and he said that Ric Flair was always a brother to him when he didn't have one. And that's why he was so nervous to face Ric Flair, because you see when you ran Arn Anderson at Russell, he was more of, even though he was a very good technical wrestler, he knew practically every hole there was to know, and he added something I'd never seen before he did it. One time, pulling down your opponent by their leg and rolling into a pin attempt. I'd never seen that before he did that. Then I think somebody else used it after him, but I'm not sure. So what he had done was, the reason he was so nervous is because when you would see Arn Anderson wrestle, he was just like he looked, very tough. Always throw a right hand, and that made it very difficult to do, because it's Ric Flair. Not only the guy that gave him the biggest break of his career by arranging to have him be brought into the Crockett promotion, but the other break was because he was being brought into the Crockett promotion was him meeting Ole Anderson. So Ole Anderson, then of course Ole Anderson started being his tag team partner, and started teaching him what he needed to do in the ring to get better, and Rick would teach him how to act outside the ring, which really helped him develop his character. And so that's why he was so nervous, was because of all that Ric Flair helped him with. If I was to describe the finish, the fans, when you look back at that video, the fans did not care who won. They just wanted it to be over. And the way I see it, if it wasn't for Flying Brian Pillman getting involved, that story would have ended flat dead right at that moment. So when they put them when Flying Brian, I believe, they went to him and said, we want to reform the Horsemen, and we want you to join us. I think they probably decided to go with that before the match even happened, and I think they had a feeling that without him getting involved, match wouldn't have been nearly as big of a success as far as the end part goes. And I think he hit Ric Flair. Ric Flair hit him. Both hit each other with the right hands, and they kicked Ric Flair in the back of the head or ear. And he got hit with the DDT. So what I was saying yesterday was how strange it was that Ric Flair came out of this match as the babyface when there were times when he came off more like a villain than Arn Anderson did, and they were both villains. So it's very interesting. But if it wasn't for Brian Pillman helping Arn, I'm trying to remember this. Oh yeah, it wasn't for Brian Pillman helping Arn Anderson. I'm trying to think of what I was saying. I was trying to pause the video and I couldn't pause it. So anyway, what I remember was he was talking. I'm sorry, I literally forgot my entire thought, my entire sentence that I just said. I forgot what I just said. Sorry, please forgive me. And I had, oh yeah, it was about the main event, War Games. That's what I was going to say next. What I was saying, of course, was how unbelievable it was. Ric Flair came out of this looking like a babyface, acting, and sounding like a babyface. And I believe it was because of Brian Pillman helping Arn Anderson. If it wasn't for that, I don't think people would have thought anything of it. So in the War Games, in the War Games match itself, Dungeon of Doom, it was Hulk Hogan and all of his Hulkamaniacs were in with all of the Dungeon of Doom, including Kevin Sullivan, who was the Taskmaster of the group. And he was, it's almost like not an exact, like a halfway version of the Camel Clutch on Zodiac. Zodiac surrendered, or submitted, so that's how they won. You're supposed to get 5 minutes, Hogan was, in the ring with Taskmaster. 2 minutes into the stipulated result. 2 minutes into the 5 minutes, with Zodiac. 2 minutes into it, Sullivan, excuse me. What happens? Giant comes out and he assaults Hogan. He actually hurt Hogan's neck. So the next night, I'm going to go to it right here so I can talk about it. First thing they show was Giant showing up in the back of a limo with Kevin Sullivan. And he said Giant did that. His father supposedly was Andre the Giant. That he would be proud of what he did the night before that. Claiming he would be right beside him and supporting his mission to destroy Hulkamania. it was easy to believe the story because he's a giant. Being that it's fake, or we know now that it's a show, that's why you can see now, in a lot of ways, why that's not a possibility. Or if it was a possibility, Andre probably wouldn't want his son to do that. So that's how you can see things like that. See how things like that, how it's a show, and how things like that were not true to life in any capacity. That's why when they created the NWO later on, when the Giant saw an opportunity to join them, he jumped at it because he said how the NWO was more edgier, more cutting edge than being a part of the Dungeon of Doom, which was considered not just cheesy, but too old school. Like, too ridiculous. Whereas NWO was because it was reality based, that's why it was cutting edge. First match, which was supposed to be American males, by virtue of them beating the Nasty Boys the night before, they're supposed to go against the Blue Bloods, who got assaulted in the entranceway Harlem Heat, who decided to put up their titles, and who then later on admitted to doing that to show they weren't afraid of anybody. And then, while Sherry was supposed to, when Booker T was asking her to hit Marcus Bagwell with her shoe, out comes Colonel Parker and he takes her away. And while that's happening, Booker T tries maybe call a pump handle slam. And he picks him up so high. No, Marcus Bagwell saw an opening and he got out of it and into a pinfall position. And they won the titles. And they were looking like, what just happened? And I know that while that happened, Dean Douglas caused Razor Ramon his match with the 1-2-3 Kid. So as much of talent as 1-2-3 Kid was, just not as how do you call that? Oh yeah. That, and then Dean Douglas doing a quote report card segment after the match was over. Things like that were interesting, but they were not exciting. So I would say, which is the point of the series, is to do a comparison of what was better, what wasn't, what was interesting, what wasn't. And unfortunately, Vince learned late in this ratings war. He learned late that his characters needed to be reality based, or an extension of their personality. He learned that late, in my estimation, because that's why Bischoff was winning. I mean, he didn't even need, in my estimation, to give away the results to win the ratings war, because he was just offering much more compelling matches and much more compelling storylines. And that was before they even had NWO. Okay. And I'm glad I did this because I was wondering how long after this they had their next In Your House pay-per-view. I just found by looking at the closed captioning part of this of the WWE Network app, I just found out it was actually 6 days after Fall Brawl. So I'm gonna come back on here tomorrow to talk about In Your House and the night after it. And the next match in Raw was Kama and Tatanka against, actually I forgot who, oh yeah, Bob, Sparky Plug Holly, and Savio Vega. Before I talk about that, let me talk about the next match on Monday Nitro. Believe the next segment on Monday Nitro, was Mean Gene Okerlund interviewing Ric Flair about what happened the night before. And he was dressed to compete. He's in his black robe with, I believe, butterflies on it that were silver. And they were going, I think they went to commercial. Arn Anderson still didn't come out. I'm actually surprised they didn't talk about, because this was 83 weeks, I'm surprised on 83 weeks that Conrad Thompson didn't bring this up yet. I'm sorry, Ric Flair left the ring to go back, go in the dressing room. They go to an announcement about Saturday night's telecast. How Sting's going to take on Lord Steven Regal. A rematch from Fall Brawl will see Cobra go against Sergeant Craig Pittman. And also Dusty Rhodes would join them as the commentator, which I believe he did that for the rest of its existence, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I do remember hearing him do a lot of Saturday night commentary. Then they're going to hear or try to give an exclusive update on the condition of Hulk Hogan. So if they had all that downloaded on the live video library of Saturday night, I would talk about it, but they don't have any of that uploaded yet, so I'm gonna have to wait a lot, probably a long time before I talk about that. But anyway, it's great to see the preview for it on this old show itself. So the next match, whoever's coming out had a lot of pyrotechnics behind the WCW logo. Yes, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. He beat Johnny B. Bad, and that part's not surprising. Surprising was, instead of cheating, all he did was position his arms to where he could, when Johnny B. Bad gave him a sunset flip, standing up in the ring. What was surprising was all he did was position his arms, push his legs forward with the regular pin, and that's how he won the match. So it's interesting to see that match. And to really I was not going to mention this because I didn't think it was relevant. But since we're talking about Paul Orndorff, I think it is relevant now to mention this. Paul Orndorff had said a few years ago how he thought it was hard to make anything look real with Ric Flair, and really the truth of the matter is, in that respect, is that before I talk about that, let me just talk about something more important. He said how he always tried to make it look real, but in his mind it was difficult to make it look real with Ric Flair, and really that part really did puzzle me because my own father said that Ric Flair looked real in the ring. So that's why I didn't understand that, but and I'm not going to just say this without having some reason, but because he was never heavyweight champion like Ric Flair was, and because he was never, people didn't make a big deal out of him like they did Ric Flair, I got a feeling a lot of that was just jealousy talking. But on the other hand, I understand what he means is that Ric Flair, by his own admission, Ric Flair could not think of defending himself or do anything different. Although he was very different when he went against Sting, I think Sting brought out the best in him, much as he brought out the best in Sting. So there are a lot of different ways of looking at things. It was interesting how he said how Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan were one-of-a-kind people. It's very interesting stuff when you look at those interviews. I gotta see that mirror again of his. Just to see what kind of expense they possibly made on this character. It was a tiny little mirror. Okay. Okay, I forgot. Brian Pillman went against Ric Flair in the main event of this match, of this show. So that was another reason he had his clothes on. So that happened. Fabio Vega and Bob Sparky Plug Holly lost to the $1 Million Corporation team of Kama and Tatanka. Kama caught Bob Sparky Plug Holly mid-air and he threw him almost like a power slam for the victory. And if I was to be honest, because because the internet wasn't as widespread as it is today, and because Eric Bischoff wanted everything to be a must-see episode of Nitro, I believe that's probably why there were a lot of things that they did that actually being taped actually helped Monday Nitro just by the fact that they used that they pre-taped, and a lot of their talent just really they didn't know what to do with them because they were stuck. The way they formatted the episode was stuck in the past 2 months. They needed to be different and up to date and fresh. And that's why that's why I said earlier that Vince found out later in this, like probably a year after this, he started realizing the importance of his characters being an extension of their personality. And the next match was Brian Walsh against Jean-Pierre Lafitte. I would have to look back. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, the next match was the main event on Monday Nitro. Yeah. So, first we gotta look at what happened in the main event. And what really made it great, when Nitro was carrying on a storyline between Savage and Luger. And Savage and Luger were in the ring, and I think Luger thought smarter about it and he just got out the ring instead of, during the break, and he said, enough of this, I'm going to the back. And so went to the commercial break. When they came back, Eric Bischoff decided to show footage from the night before, what happened between Hogan and Giant. First they showed the Giant running over his motorcycle that was given to him by a charity organization. And then they showed him assaulting him in the big cage for the War Games match. So then they go to the main event. Brian Pillman comes out first, and then it's then Ric Flair. And what I did find out not too long ago watching Brian Pillman's story was how the first person that Brian Pillman I saw a video of doing a promo of was Ric Flair. By the way, Ric Flair won this match by using the figure 4. And I lost my train of thought because I was looking at Ric Flair and I was trying to understand. The thing that broke a blood vessel by Ric Flair's left pectoral muscle. I know because one time when I had to do blood work, they broke a blood vessel in my right bicep, not too far from it. And just like that day, just like Ric Flair's pectoral muscle looked. So that's how Monday Nitro ended. I believe the last match for no, third match was Jean-Pierre Lafitte against Brian Walsh, and Jean-Pierre beat Brian Walsh with a diving senton, the top rope. They do a commercial for next week's. No, they do a commercial for the pay-per-view. How there's a triplet or ladder match, and then year before this happened. Over a year before this, no. Sorry to do that again. Let me stop and think about this. No. WrestleMania 10 was year before this. So over a year before this was when they had the first ever ladder match. So they showed a picture from that ladder match of both IC or Intercontinental titles being suspended and just hanging up in the air. And they show Shawn Michaels talking for himself and Big Cat Daddy Cool Diesel. And they show Gorilla Monsoon saying that titles will change hands if either man gets pinned or both men get pinned at the same time. And then they show the logo in your house, and they say when it starts, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Mabel or Men on a Mission challenging Owen Hart and Yokozuna for the titles. Yokozuna hitting a leg drop over back of over King Mo's neck after Owen Hart hit the drop toe hold on him, and that's how they kept the titles, because I believe it was considered their finisher. And I'm going to finish this recording. I'm going to do another recording. I'm going to do another recording after this, and if I can remember, I'm going to download it tomorrow. Alright, thank you. And goodbye.